Hey everybody, this is James, the VP of Marketing at Leap. Just wanted to say hey to everybody. We're going to get this thing kicked off. I know it's 2:01. So this, just so everybody knows, this is going to be kind of a trial run, so to speak, of our new webinar series. I know there are some topics that we cover that obviously there's no way in hell we're ever going to be able to do those within 30 minutes. But there's some others that obviously we can get through pretty quick. So we're going to be doing a series called the really original, but it's going to be called the mini series for the Leap Academies. That we're going to try and get everything done in about 15 minutes and then open it up for Q&A after that. So these are going to be quick and dirty topics. They're going to be a combination of both features within Leap, but they're also going to be stuff that's centered around the industry trends, things like that, facts, etc. So we're really excited to be launching this. It's going to be pretty cool. And if you have any suggestions for this, you can always reach out to us, info@leap2digital.com, if there's anything we haven't covered yet that you really want us to. So by all means, if there's anything out there, reach out. Going to try and jump in today. The thing that we're going to be focusing on today is going to be the power of integrations. So it's a pretty broad and kind of weird topic, but at the same time, it's something that's so unbelievably important. The one thing to note with any of this is there's a combination of different technologies that people bring into their businesses. Nothing is just, hey, I'm gonna, generate some leads, send some people into the field and call it a day. There's a lot of different things that you need to use in order to effectively manage your business, things like QuickBooks, a CRM to manage your leads, just tons of other things like that. So we're going to be talking about not only how these technologies integrate within your organization and what you should be looking at, but we're also going to be educating you on some of the other stuff that you might not know exists, like some of the manufacturer data, portals, and then on top of that, things that you should be asking yourself as a business owner, and things that you should be looking for, especially when when shopping for different pieces of technology. Really, just looking at the long-term vision out of all of this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these main topics. So last Tuesday, or excuse me, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, we had a webinar where we really focused on all the key components of what a lead funnel consists of and how to make it bulletproof. We're going to recap that a little bit because it's going to really play into today, because at each step in that funnel is going to be a different piece of technology. The next thing we're going to look at the different types of integrations. So technology in itself, manufactured data, and then some of the other components. And then the other bit that we got to look at is we got to think about the future. When you look at a piece of technology, what questions do you need to ask yourself to make sure that whatever you're about to buy is going to be able to grow alongside your business, not this year or next year, but 10 years from now? And there's some very core components to pieces of technology that will make it very clear for you guys after this webinar today whether or not a piece is worth your time or not. So again, we're going to take a look at those three main things, and then we're going to open up question and answer. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into, in the question section, you'll see on your screen, this is a listen only webinar, but feel free, pop your questions in there. It's always nice to hear where everybody's joining from throughout the day. We're in the DC Baltimore area, but let us know where you're joining from. If you have any questions throughout, drop them in this question section. It's the easiest way for us to understand exactly what we want to cover, and if there's anything that we're missing. So feel free, drop in, say hi, throw your questions in there along the way. So moving along. So let's take a look at what we did last time. So this is the lead funnel. When you look at the marketing, a lead comes in, whether through canvassing, a home show event, if you're driving it digitally, it's all going to be fed into your CRM. You're going to be managing that customer experience throughout the life. Comes in, you manage it, put into a call center or your office admin or something like that. They're going to be the ones saying, all right, do you have a pulse and do you actually want to buy something from me? Yep, okay, cool, let's set an appointment. Next thing is you're obviously going to send a salesperson out. So whether you're doing this remotely or whether you're actually having somebody knock on their door and give them a sales pitch, You know, you're gonna have some sort of sales element involved in your business process. From there, once you either sell a job or don't sell the job, it's either going to go into production where you remeasure, order the materials, install them in the house, or it's going to go directly into, or after production, going to go right back into rehash marketing. So it's, hey, you've got 20 windows in your house. I only sold you 10 of them. Let's get those other 10 done upstairs, etc. So lots of different ways to increase the lifetime value and become this like really bulletproof lead funnel. All right, but the thing we need to take a look at is what kind of integrations exist along the way and what kind of technologies will functionally work. Big thing out of all of this is the reason why anyone wants to focus on the whole lead funnel is simply because when you have a piece of technology that's integrated throughout, it's seamless customer service and experience, which we all know equates to referrals and reviews. You're going to gain efficiencies as a business. There's going to be more trust between teams, and the biggest thing that you're going to get rid of is all that BS conflict and finger pointing that comes about anytime you run into any sort of issues. You know, if a sales rep doesn't bring back an application on time, someone's getting pissed at them. If they can't read that person's handwriting because it's a 7 or a 1 and I need to order some materials and the difference between those two numbers is a hell of a lot of money, I'm going to get annoyed and point some fingers. So you can eliminate all of that by automating it with technology that doesn't ask those questions. So let's take a look at what we can do. The other bit we also have to consider too is you're dealing with a demographic that as we continue to evolve and as the years go by, you know, the target audience that we all have, even irrespective of age, is just becoming more accustomed to immediate gratification. When you look at this, especially millennials, you're never going to see them without a phone in their hand. You're never going to see them without that instant access to data. You know, I had a conversation at dinner last night. Oh, who is that person in that movie? It took about 10 seconds to pull my phone out of my pocket, open up Google, type in a couple keywords, and boom, I had an answer. You know, where before you'd have to sit there and stew over it for a week straight and say, oh yeah, that guy, he was in this movie. Call up your friend and give them the answer. But again, we have to consider that as we evolve as businesses, more and more of us have to cater to this immediacy. Otherwise, we become irrelevant, and otherwise our competitors are just going to gain that advantage over us. So again, know your audience and know where you need to be, even if you think you're doing it right now. The other thing we also have to consider too when it comes to technology, you can invest all day long in your marketing. It's going to drive really good traction. However, this statistic, we've used it again and again because it's one of the most powerful things out there right now. It's if you sold 100 people, 57 of those 100 people are going to come in because the quality of your leads. The other 43 are going to come because your sales process sold them. All right, so when you think about your processes and your procedures, if technology isn't seamless throughout, you run the risk of losing 43% of your sales, and that's no good. Now, do the math of any of your businesses and ask yourself, if I lost 3% of my revenue, would that be good? I hope every single person on this call today says, no, that would be really bad, James. Thanks for being so obvious. But anyway, if you haven't pulled this off these decks or taken a screenshot or something like that, you absolutely want to have this posted on your desk just to constantly remind you that there's a better way to do it and you have to refine and make it as smooth as possible. Again, your experience and the process matters more than you can imagine. So let's take a look at what type of integrations exist. Again, we're going to go through these things pretty quick because this is the mini series. We're going to be knocking this stuff out hopefully within about another 5 minutes. All right, here's your funnel again. All right, there's a lot of different components to this and there's a lot of different layers. So as we go through, we have to recognize that there's different types of technologies that are going to come into play at each one of them. These are the really big ones when you take a look at the overarching funnel. All right, so these are what we consider other disparate technologies that are designed for very specific purposes. You know, when you look at the CRMs, and the 5 that you see on the screen are the ones that we fully integrate with, We're going to go into another piece of this called APIs in a minute, but the neatest thing is when you take a look at these are the industry gurus, if you will. They're the ones who are really catering to our industry and have the strongest technology platforms. All right, they're going to be the ones to manage your customer's experience end to end. But unfortunately, what you find is when you get to that middle of the road sales, they really have no idea what they're doing. You know, that's one of the reasons why we have strategic partnerships with pretty much everybody you see on this screen. You know, one of the main things that you're going to run into is that dynamic or that environment in the home when selling is drastically different than what you're dealing with in the home. So when you look at what kind of sales tools have to incorporate in here, you can see we've got EagleView and Hover. Those are measurement tools. We've got another one signed with Company Cam, which we didn't put on here yet because we're still working on the integration. But you know, Leap is going to be constantly adding new partners because so many different organizations use different tools within the home while selling. So again, EagleView and Hover are just two amazing examples of industry leaders for measurement technology. DocuSign, you know, every single person on this call, I guarantee, has used DocuSign in some way, shape, or form in their business or in their personal life. The fact that you can remotely sign something and it's legally binding, brilliant. But we have to have that capability. We have full integration with them. WorldPay. So again, when we start talking about, earlier in the year, we did a couple webinars on compliance and payment processing and secure payment capture. WorldPay is one of our partners that exists for that secure payment capture feature. So again, if you're not capturing that payment in a digital format, you know, you run the risk of compliance, you run the risk of fines, you run the risk of data breaches, et cetera. It's a big deal. But that is such a niche world, you know, pun intended, WorldPay. But, you know, it's such a unique niche feature that you have to rely on somebody who's been there, done that, and invested in all the tools that are required to make a secure platform. You know, and then PowerPoint. Great. Everyone's probably been using PowerPoint since they were in like elementary school. For some others, you know, it's something that's been around just forever. PowerPoint is something that every single one of the companies that we work with tends to put their sales pitches in. So if they can't take something as simple as a PowerPoint or a PDF, throw that in the technology so that you can present that to the homeowner, again, what are you doing? So moving along, again, these are just some of the ones that exist within that. There's plenty of others. The other thing we got to take a look at is financing. We ran a webinar about a month ago with one of our power customers. They're called Paramount Builders, and they're located in kind of the mid-Atlantic area. They have over 60 sales reps in the field, and one of the things they found is early on they've been using Leap for well over a year and a half, but they never used financing in the home. When they started offering this, their retention rates went up. You know, they stopped getting cancellations. I believe it went up almost 13 percentage points. And what they also realized too is their average ticket went up on average about $1,600. So when you look at that, simply by offering a lender like the ones that you see on our screen, currently we have Green Sky Foundation Service and Fortiva, the orange F. Those are all fully integrated and ready to go. Flip of a switch, you can be live. We also just signed 3 new ones, AmeriFirst, Interbank, and Dividend. They're not live yet, and we haven't actually announced these to anyone. So for anyone on this call, you guys are actually lucky ducks because this is all hush hush. You're the first ones to hear about this. So cool thing is any one of these lenders, you can offer this in the home and get an immediate credit decision. You know, offering this makes people feel more tied in. It plays to that whole immediacy that we talked about earlier, knowing that the demographic for this industry is changing. So again, you have to make sure that you have some sort of integration with these lenders. Otherwise, the problem you run into is, let me fill out a credit app. Again, you're putting really important information on paper. Paper is not secure. We all know that. With that said, a lot of these portals, connectivity is one of the only issues that you have with this. Is you have to have the ability to send out that person's credit info in order to run it, in order to get the approval or denial. But If you can operate in a system that has a cache or something that keeps it in a holding tank, the second you go back into connectivity, you can just pull the trigger and boom, there's your answer. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. You got to make sure that you're integrated with the folks that help you close business. And frankly, without lending, you guys are going to be limiting the number of people that can purchase your products. The last thing we want to take a look at, especially when it comes to the different types of integrations, are manufacturers, all right? There's a lot of really cool companies out there. Provia on the screen, like you see, Provia is an incredibly tech-forward company. You know, they have a really solid team of developers, and what they've done is they put together a tool called EntryLink, right? You can price out all their doors with every custom option, windows, etc. But one of the issues that you run into is a lot of dealers who sell Provia products, the doors and windows, they sell plenty of others products to go alongside that. So you can't rely on one piece of technology to get everything you need done within the home. And if you start selling in one tool and then going into another one and then going into another one, it becomes more cumbersome and more of, honestly, and more of a pain in the ass than using paper. So when you look at it, a lot of these manufacturers are starting to recognize that, hey, I need to play nicely with tools like Leap or CRMs, etc., so that not only my application that I've developed, but for some of these other ones, like the ABCs of the world, the Softlights and the Home Guards, Owens Corning as well. I mean, they're juggernauts, and our friends at BCI Acrylic they have both Bath Planet and Luxury Bath. Like, those brands have made significant investments in digitizing all their products. So any of the combinations that they have, they partner with companies like us, and we can actually seamlessly plug in that data, significantly limiting the onboarding time. You know, that's a beautiful thing, especially when it comes to building all this stuff out. There's no two companies that are alike, so something out of the box is never going to work for anybody. So in this, you have to make sure that these organizations are also forward thinking and that they also believe in integrations with other technologies. Otherwise, like we said, and it's just a recurring theme of this, it's just going to make your life more difficult as the ecosystem continues to evolve. You'll also notice in that last paragraph, one of the things that I mentioned is if you do talk with these guys consistently, if you do have those conversations around, hey, I'd love for you guys to play nicely with this data or this CRM that I use, and if they consistently tell no, yell at them. You know, a lot of these guys don't feel they need to change until it's too late and they start losing business. And then at that point, it's all hands on deck. Yes, let's go digital. Let's do what we need to do. So if you can, be the catalyst for change with them. Yell at them. I underlined that and put it in bold for a reason. You should yell at these folks and say, hey, talk with these companies. If Leap doesn't partner with somebody that you use, do an introduction. Hey, you really need to get on board with these guys. We'd love that. That's 50% of my day-to-day is spent speaking with prospective partners like these manufacturers. So again, this is just a great opportunity for you guys to really ask yourselves, am I making the long-term play with the folks and the manufacturers that are going to put me in a position of success? And then lastly, let's talk a little bit about the future. Again, I mentioned one of the biggest things you have to consider are really these three main questions. It's, am I buying for my processes today, or am I thinking about the long-term future? So many people are nearsighted. It's the worst. You know, when we deal with them, they're like, oh my God, well, I'm going to do it this way, and the technology has to be able to do this because this is what our process looks like. Don't think that way. The most successful folks that we ever work with, and you can see their growth year over year, and it's really impressive. The most successful and the best practices in this space, you should be approaching everything with, is there a better way to do it? If I do this, can I grow beyond? Number two is you also have to ask yourself, can the technology that I'm using grow with me? So many pieces of technology that people use right now limit them from growing because at this point they know, hey, you know, I would absolutely love if it could do X, Y, and Z, but you know, it just can't. So maybe someday I'll switch and do it the other way. No. You shouldn't be limiting yourself, because the second you push yourself in a corner or you're continuing to grow and you really find that breaking point with your tech, that is usually when things go really bad. I believe there's phrases that is quote unquote when the shit hits the fan. You got to be careful about putting yourself in that position by asking yourself continuously, is this technology that I'm investing in going to be able to grow along with me? And then lastly, is there an API? All right. A lot of you are like, what the hell is an API, James? Well, let's tell you what it is. This is what the hell an API is. An API is an application programming interface. The easiest way to think about what that is it's basically the link between all your different systems. So if you have a CRM and you have a calendar, how do they communicate? An API. If you use Leap and you use a CRM, how does your data from Leap get back into the CRM? API. So again, these things are so unbelievably important to the quality of the technology. If it doesn't work well, or it's poorly designed, or it's cumbersome, or if it's too, too high level and in the weeds, unfortunately, what you're going to find is it's going to set you up for failure. Again, this is arguably one of the most complex components of a piece of technology, but it is the absolute most important. You'll see that last and third bullet point. Without the API, it's like having a really badass cell phone that is unable to make calls because it has no antenna or service. Like, you're basically sitting there with a piece of technology that's epic, but it only talks to itself. What good is it? Oftentimes what we like to say is when somebody comes to us and says, oh, I have this piece of technology, it's amazing. Cool, is they have an API? Nope. Great. You have a really fancy, wonderful, expensive piece of digital paper. That's it. It can't do much, but it can do cool things within itself, and that's it. That is not something that's going to be able to grow your company long term. So again, going back to this is one of those things that we could nerd out on all day long. And again, I always remind everybody when we start doing these webinars, one of the reasons why I love talking about this stuff so much, I don't come from home improvement. I come from the tech world. So a lot of what I've done is within private equity and within big data, predictive analytics, things like that, and other education technologies. So when you look at that, most of what I've done in my experience is go into a company and look at their processes and say, hey, is there a way that we can eliminate some of these redundancies? And is there a way we can be that much more efficient by incorporating technology? And one of the most important things that I always look at when I go and assess a new piece of tech is I always take a look at what can it do and what could it do in the future. This is the most important component of that. So again, if you guys have those internally, ask yourself, if I have a cell phone that isn't able to do anything beyond that, great. Why? Connectivity cannot be a barrier. It can't. There's so many opportunities for success if you have an offline capability. So again, look at a lot of your systems. The worst thing in the world, I was at dinner last night, and again, I mentioned we're dialing in today from like the DC area. And one of the things that you find is there's a lot of restaurants in DC that happen to be in basements. You get the same thing in New York and other major cities. I was trying to look up something for a friend of mine at dinner, pulled out my phone and tried to Google it. And unfortunately, I got the spinning wheel of death for a minute straight and finally got so fed up with it. I said, well, can't figure it out now. You do it later. I have no patience for this crap, and went back to my wine. So again, that experience is the same thing you're going to run into with a customer. If you get that spinning wheel of death while you're waiting for something with a customer, they're going to get annoyed. They're going to find something else to do, and it's just going to be, all right, this is ridiculous. This is probably the same experience that I'm going to get when you sell me something and I'm waiting 10 months to be installed. Gah. So again, all of these things, your APIs, your integrations with manufacturers, with financing, with other components, has to be something that can be done on or offline, and it has to be able to speak with everything else in your environment, so all your other departments. Otherwise, the problem that you're going to run into is you just create a nightmare rather than a solution. So ask yourself the question, am I doing the same thing that I always did because of pride or because of whatever you want to call it? You guys can all read the slide. It's as business owners, you owe it to yourselves to constantly think outside the box and how you can improve. Never feel good about what you're doing at any given time, because there's probably always going to be a better way to do it. So with that said, that's a mini series first round. I don't think we've ever gotten through anything in 26 minutes, even with all the fluff at the beginning of this convo. So I want to open this up to the folks that we have on the conversation today. Are there any questions that you guys have about this? I went quick, I know that. I know it's also a very complex topic, but I want to open it up to make sure that there's nothing that anybody else really was looking for that I didn't answer. So feel free in that question section, drop in any questions that you guys might have. Oh wait, there's a couple coming in right now, so cool. So one of them that we got was, do you guys, or how do you guys work with the various CRMs? So when we set up our partnerships, one of the things that we do first and foremost is we sit down with their tech staff. We take a look at how they built their systems out. So we take a look at that API and we say, all right, if we have somebody's name, address, and phone in Leap, and there's also a field in, say, MarketSharp that has name, address, and phone, how do we pass that data in the fields in MarketSharp into Leap so that it automatically populates? That's the API. So we see exactly what it can do. And as part of our conversation, we say, cool, first things first, let's map to what you have. And the second conversation we have is, how can we make the integration better? And at that point, we typically put together these strategic partnerships and start planning out phases. So it's like phase one, let's make sure the two just talk together given the tools that we have. Phase two, let's add other features that can be passed up and downstream. Phase three, let's go even gnarlier, excuse my Southern California vernacular, but let's go even farther down that rabbit hole and see what we can do to make this the strongest possible partnership ever. And that's the kind of people that we bring on as our partners, is the ones who think the way we do, which is, what can we do to make contractors' lives easier or our customers' lives easier? So to answer your question, that's how we approach our CRMs. All right. And then same thing with financing. We do the exact same thing with financing. So again, well, cool. So this was, call this trial run for the mini series thus far. We're going to be doing a lot more of these things to give you the little one-offs. Hope you guys got something out of this. Feel free to reach out to us. You can see here this is my actual personal email. So you can always reach out directly to me, jwade@leap2digital.com. We're also going to be posting this on our YouTube channel, so feel free to go in there, like and subscribe. You can look at us. We'll also have it on our Facebook page as well. Thanks so much for attending, everybody. Love to have you guys and really grateful for everyone. Any questions you have, feel free to reach out. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.